Digital Pilipinas, bringing together the world's industry leaders in a multi-month movement of innovation and nation building to solve the country's age-old problems with technology. Technology can be our nation's strength and advantage as we showcase Filipino tech expertise to make a lasting impact on the country, influence change, and foster inclusion through technology and innovation across local and global spheres. To do this, Digital Pilipinas champions a 12-point agenda that provides solutions while leveraging on ICT-driven opportunities. FinTech, GovTech, and RegTech. PropTech. Digital transformation. Overseas Filipino banking. Future of mobility. InsurTech. E-commerce. Cybersecurity. Internet of Energy. Future of education. Digital cities. Gaming. The 12-point agenda will be our guiding star as we trade with trust, encourage cross-border collaborations, e-commerce, open finance, and work hand-in-hand with national and global tech leaders. Digital Pilipinas is a legacy in the making. In 2019, Amor Maclang, FinTech Philippines Executive Director, and Geyser Maclang Marketing Communications Incorporated co-founder, led the Philippine delegation in the Singapore FinTech Festival. In 2020, the country joined the ranks of emerging leaders in the largest event for global tech innovators, the World FinTech Festival. Now, Ms. Maclang, the appointed convener of the World FinTech Festival Philippines, is taking it a step further by gathering the brightest minds to establish the roadmap of the country's technological future with Digital Pilipinas. In the coming months, we will create the Digital Pilipinas Blueprint. It is a whole-of-nation, whole-of-society, whole-of-business approach with national leaders, foreign partners, and the private sector. Filipinos are at the heart of the ASEAN digital revolution, with Asia as the sandbox of innovations. With Digital Pilipinas, our nation will collectively break barriers, tech up industries, and go beyond what seemed to be impossible before. Watch out for our different events and programs in the following months featuring Business Without Borders, Real Estate and PropTech, EduTech, InsurTech and HealthTech, Environment and Sustainability, Diversity and Inclusion, Esports and Gaming, Cyber Defense and Cybersecurity. Get ready to join our biggest initiatives during the Global Impact FinTech ASEAN Conference, the Risky Business Series, the World FinTech Festival Reduxes, the Singapore FinTech Festival, the Next Generation Leaders Conference, culminating in the launch of the World FinTech Festival Philippines in November. Join the movement and be part of the country's digital revolution. Contact us by email and through our Facebook pages to learn more and be part of the whole-of-nation, whole-of-society platform for global and local prosperity. Digital Pilipinas is supported by the following partners and prime movers in innovation and nation building from the government and private sectors. Join the movement today. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Mabuhay ang Digital Pilipinas.
Sa pagpatak ng ulan, sa pagsubok na dumaraan, may tapang kang harap, lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap.
Kailan may di mag-iisa, susulong ka ng may kasama, may tapang kang haharap.
Lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na, ngayon na.
Sumpay sa pagbabago,
Harapin ang bagong mundo. Simula na ng bukas. Simula na ng bukas ngayon.
A very pleasant afternoon to each and every one of you. My name is Joseph Defitas, your host for today. On behalf of Digital Filipinas, the Philippine Native Plants
Digital
Conservation
Filipinas.
Society Incorporated, and Geyser McClang Marketing Communications Incorporated, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Your presence and attention are indeed highly valued and appreciated. Our webinar's theme for today, ProTECHting the Plants That Protect Us, is a timely topic as our native plant biodiversity remains under constant stress due to man-made threats and the current climate crisis. There is a natural climate solution to this that we are all familiar with. It's trees. Later on, we'll learn more from experts about the importance of trees, specifically our Philippine native trees. The webinar you're attending is part of a series of discussions under the Digital Filipinas banner that seeks to address various national issues with the aid of emerging technology. This afternoon, we'll hear from members of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated, or Pnp Csi, who are at the forefront of efforts to conserve our native plants. Also taking part are leaders from organizations such as Globe Telecom, Filipinas Shell Foundation, and Mega Global Corporation, who will share how they balanced out their business pursuits and the preservation of the environment. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Amor McClang, our first speaker for today. Ms. McClang is an award-winning brand architect, risk, crisis, reputation strategist, movement maker, and marketing and communications innovator. As an internationally awarded champion of marketing as a force for good, her projects demonstrate that you can hit your business goals while still doing good for the country. She is a champion of technology, digital transformation, and innovation. Ms. McClang is the convener of Digital Filipinas, executive director of the FinTech Philippines Association, and co-founder of Geyser McClang Marketing Communications Incorporated. Everyone, please welcome Ms. McClang for her opening remarks.
Hi, Joseph. Thank you so much. You can tell if people are your friends because they create such cringe-worthy introductions. They make you sound more important than you truly are. You missed out the most important part of my credentials, which is I have been a long-standing member, a very proud member of the Philippine Native Plant Conservation Society. I've taken walks with them, and I'm a proud Nepenthes mommy. So if you don't know what Nepenthes is, please Google it. And it's something I never get tired of saying. When I was last in Penang, Malaysia. So Nepenthes is basically a pitcher plant. No? I have this obsession for carnivorous plants. And a lot of that is the fault of one of my favorite scientists here, Mr. Anthony Arbias, who will be speaking later. No? Carnivorous plants have a special place in my heart. And remember Michael, Mr. Michael Tulim, who's you probably know him more as Mr. Mega Sardines. One of the reasons why I dragged you to the foot of Mount Apo is because they have a Nepenthes trail there. And what I wanted to share with you is that the Nepenthes, or the carnivorous plant, is actually a native, it's something native to the Philippines and has actually put us in the global map. So when I was in Penang, I visited a nursery for carnivorous plants. And guess what? The most precious one that they have in Penang is called the Nepenthes Sibuyanensis. Sibuyanensis meaning Sibuyan Island, which is in Romblon, okay? It's the most prized thing. And that's why it felt to me the coming together of technology and the environment. I'm not gonna, many of you here, all 406 of you signed up, maraming salamat po, kahit alas 5 na ng hapon. Know that the Philippines is the heart of biodiversity for life below water being an active diver, and also above land, right? And that is something we're extremely proud of. We are at the heart of the center, not just for diving, but also for endemicity in general. Do you know that my other life, which is all about technology, the Philippines is also front and center of this. So I was just in a call. I was just in an interview with Inquirer TV earlier, and I was so proud to talk to OFWs and say that the first e-money in the world is actually created for Filipinos by Filipinos. It was by a telco in 1992. The legendary M-Pesa in Kenya that everyone talks about. Do you know that they actually came to the Philippines and learned from GCash early part of 2000, right? So our mama for Globe and GCash is here. You can ask her all about it, but she's here in a different capacity, which is basically she's the only person who listens to me at 8 a.m. to rapidly talk about how we can apply technology to the environment. So for that, Ms. Yoli Crisanto, maraming salamat po. The Philippines is also at the heart of esports. So before you even have Hidlin Diaz win a gold, we have Filipinos winning for us accolades overseas in gaming. Of course, our entire ecosystem has been programmed to think kailangan magtapos ka ng 4-year college. But guess what? Now we have gamers, young boys below 18 years old who are doing gaming, making 35,000 pesos a month in cryptocurrency, totally legitimate, whose revenues have already surpassed the remittances of our OFWs coming from Hong Kong. There is now a reverse diaspora, and I never get tired talking about this. I grew up in an era where the best and the brightest in the world actually go overseas to seek out greener pastures. We now live in an era where it's never been better. There's never been a better time to be Filipino and be in technology. Lahat po ng mga puti from all over the world is now choosing to move and domicile themselves here in the Philippines. We're also #1 in crypto uptake in the world, and we have some of the best regulators. I was proud to say, and I won't say na lang who, last week I had a call with a superpower, a government of a superpower. Syempre, because they were puti, they said to me, you know what? We want to do this for your industry, blah, 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 etc. And little Asian Filipino me said, with all due respect po, I said po because I'm from Bulacan, I'm Bulacania, I can't get rid of that. You have 10 banking licenses. Europe in total has 15. We have 40 plus in Asia, six of which are Filipino. So can you imagine, right? They must have been really surprised, but it felt certainly good to be an Asian and a Pinoy and say that to a superpower because the roles are getting reversed. But that's why I want to bring in the power of technology and innovation to support the environment. And I know it seems like tilting at windmills and it feels very quixotic, but when you have people like the 3 people I was able to invite today, Miss Yoli Crisanto, Mr. Michael Q. Lim, and Miss Marvie Trudeau. Filipino po si Ma'am Marvie kahit po Trudeau ang kanyang last name. And then of course, meeting with who I feel are the real deal when it comes to promoting native plants, and not just native trees and native plants, but also the communities that support them. President Sandra and past President Anthony Arbias and Mr. David Pless, thank you for the trust. I know you know me primarily as your Krispy Kreme girl, that if you need snacks, she brings in Krispy Kreme and Maxes. But I want you to know that I am so passionately rabid about supporting you guys because I know you're the real deal. This organization has actually been very averse to partnering with big corporates because primarily they're scientists who are just pushing the agenda of the environment. But if today we can break the barriers of corporate advocates and also the scientists working together, I believe, like in technology, we can put the Philippines in the map when it comes to biodiversity. There are 3 projects that we hope all of you will want to support today in Pnp Csi. Number 1 is the creation of a native tree trail in an in-city forest that is within the proximity of Metro Manila. I will leave that to Ma'am Sandra to discuss. The second will be a citizen scientist app. You take a photo, you get to know and add to the body of knowledge as to what this native tree is. Last but not the least would be something that really turned me. I remember walking around in city parks like Arroceros or in UP Diliman, just following Mr. Anthony Arbias teaching us about native trees. And that really has changed my life close to 10 years ago. And we hope to be able to replicate that by showing you biodiversity hubs all over the country, wherever you might be, even if it's during the time of the pandemic. Before I close, I'd like to thank not just my Pnp Csi family, but also my Globe, Mega, and Shell families. Ma'am Yoli, wag ka pong magsasawa. Whenever I have a crazy idea on what we can do for the environment, ang daming gusto magsuporta ng banking, fintech, payments. When it came to listening to the environment, sorry, si Yoli Crisanto lang po ang nakikinig sa akin. Thank you, Ma'am Yoli. I told you I was gonna embarrass you in my introduction. Michael Tulim, right? Kahit iniwan mo ako when we climbed Mount Apo, thank you for championing carbon sinks. I'm so happy that you will get to tell people about what you're doing in Zamboanga City, a city that we both mutually love, and the work that you're doing in bamboos. Last but not the least, the real superstar for Palawan and for malaria eradication in the country, Ma'am Marvie. It is no accident that many people in Shell consider you our superwoman. Please guide all of us to guide and help the communities that protect the plants that protect us. And on that note, maraming salamat po, and I would like to turn it over back to Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful and invigorating opening remarks, Ms. McClang. I'm sure our viewers are excited for what's in store for them in the succeeding segments. Our next speaker for today is Mr. Anthony Arbias. He is a native plants advocate and the former president and one of the co-founders of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society, Incorporated, or Pnp Csi. He is currently involved in the eco-guiding trading program of the Department of Tourism all over the Philippines for 10 years now, and he handles ecotourism and biodiversity aspects of the program. For his presentation, Mr. Arbias will give us a brief background and history of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Arbias.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope we are all okay. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'll be discussing the origins of the Pnp Csi, or the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society. So next slide, please. Okay, so during the pandemic, more and more people are into plants. So people who doesn't like plants at all are now into plants. So here in the Philippines, we call them the new plantitos and plantitas. But not many people knows that what they care for or what they bring into their homes and in their gardens are actually exotic plants. When we say exotic plants, these are also known as the alien species or the invasive species or the foreign species. We also call them the non-indigenous species. And sometimes they are also called bioinvaders when they are marked as an IAS or an invasive alien species. These are actually plants that are growing in a non-native environment. So it's not actually limited to ornamental plants or the plants we bring home in our gardens. But in reality, most of the plants we use and see around us are exotics. So to name not just a few, but many, most of the vegetables we eat, if you know the song or the rhyme, Bahay Kubo, almost all of them are actually exotics. The fruits we eat and most of the food and drinks we which are our favorite, for example, chocolate, corn, sugar, etc., are almost all exotics. So I've read somewhere that here in the Philippines, around 50% of our land are actually devoted in agriculture. So if the agricultural industry is more dedicated to planting exotics, that means that 50% is the other 50% is divided into our residents, factories, some are actually natural parks, etc. But there is a problem because there's growing pressure among the forests and all the native plants all around the Philippines. Okay, so that burden is actually the burden of our former president and founder, which is Leonard Coe. Okay, next slide, please. So the counterpart of exotics are actually the native plants. So native to the Philippines. There are also native to the USA, native to Japan, native to Russia, etc., etc. So when you say native, in biogeography, a native species is an indigenous species, an indigenous to a given region or ecosystem if its presence in that region is the result of only local natural evolution, though often popularized as with no human intervention. So it means that before colonization, those native plants are already there. No one brought them there. Okay, so but not many Filipinos knows that we have so much native plants here in the Philippines. Actually, it's around 10,000 species of native plants, not just trees. For flowering trees alone, we have around 3,600 species of native flowering trees. Okay, so if you would see on the bottom of the slide, you would see the popular mangkono. This is the ironwood of the Philippines. We have several species in Palawan, in Sibuyan Island. Some are in Surigao. Some are in the Sierra Madre Mountains, in the Northern Sierra Madre National Park. Okay, and this the pink one is the melastoma, and the white one, which is quite big, is actually the Katmon or the Delenia philippinensis, which is also an endemic tree here in the Philippines. This tree is actually not only used for ornamental, but is sometimes used for as a souring ingredient for sinigangs and other Filipino dishes. Okay, so the right one is actually the Rafflesia lagaskei. We have right now we have 13 species of Rafflesia, and not many Filipinos knows about these things. Okay, so the aim of our society is actually to popularize them. So if you popularize them, there's a big tendency to, at least for Filipinos, to appreciate them and then eventually love them and then care for them. Okay, so next slide, please. So here in the Philippines, there is one very dedicated person who's into native plants all of his life. So from the moment, actually, not only his professional life, but beyond his professional life, since he was a kid or as a young man, he was already passionate about biology, botany, astronomy, geology, etc. But his real love is actually native plants. Okay, so he is the founder of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society. His name is Leonard Coe. maybe not many of us knows Leonard Coe, but in the scientific community and then the conservation community, he's a very well-known figure globally. Okay, so what he does is he goes to the forest and collects specimen and he IDs each and every one of them. So here in the Philippines, I think his capability is unsurpassed and unparalleled. So from the academe, from the NGOs and the scientific community, even the government, he is the secret weapon because if no one knows the ID, they simply say, bring it to Leonard. And then even if it is just a photograph, Leonard has this encyclopedic memory that he'll be able to ID the plants properly. Okay, so when during his lifetime, he was able to print and do publications, scientific publications, which until now are still being used, and some of them are actually used as a policy of the government, especially on the threatened plants list and the strategic ways of how to conserve the native plants here in the Philippines. So these are some of his publications, like the forest trees in Palanan. This is the longest studied plant here in the Philippines and I think in Southeast Asia. And the framework and the Philippine Plant Conservation Strategy Action Plan. So he's one of the guys who was tasked to help on this publication. And one of his most popular one is the common medicinal plants of the Cordillera region. So right now I'm here in Baguio City. Leonard is very popular here in the Cordilleras because as a young professional or as a young scientist, he was able to gather the important plants which are very important for the medicinal field. Okay, so next slide, please. So during the life of Leonard, it was a life of advocacy, passion, dedication, kindness. So those are the words which are generally said to him. Okay, so he always goes on the long shot. So if he wants to encourage or motivate people to like native plants, what he does is he brings people close to the native population of native plants. For example, in the forest, in the wilderness area, because there he would able to, we call it tree walk or a nature walk. He would emphasize and give credence and value to the native plants, all of them along the way. So we call it ethnobotany. So ethnobotany is basically the science which deals with the relationship of man to plants. Okay, so he's one of the top guys on ethnobotany. And when he goes on an ethnobotanical tour, most of the guests would simply fall in love with the native plants. Although it's a long shot and a tedious shot, but Leonard would always give in to the pressure of, hey, can you invite us for a nature walk or tree walk? So he does it that way. Okay, so Leonard believed in the classroom without walls principle. So not all of the things you would learn is actually inside the classroom, but more of it is actually outside the classroom where it rains, there's so much mud, there's so much insects, etc., etc. So it's actually part of the whole thrill and experience. He also thinks that the best way to learn is through immersion. That's why he brings people to the mangrove areas, to the montane areas, etc., etc., because he wants to have a different paradigm when it comes to experience. He also advocates towards native plants on a hardcore way. Okay, so I think he's the most hardcore among all of the Filipino scientists. His way of popularizing native plants is through ethnobotany. Okay, so as you can see here, these are his students in UP Diliman, and we brought them in Mount Manahaw. So it's quite different because it's not just a classroom activity. You bring them so that they would experience how to collect and to properly diagnose the identification of plants in the field. So that's quite hard, but later on they would thank him because they've learned a lot and they were inspired through his teaching. So next. But suddenly, oh, by the way, in 2007, uh, because he thinks that his ways are quite, slow in in enticing and influencing more and more people. So he brought in some of his colleagues and trusted friends to come up with an organizations which would center in promoting native plants. So in 2007, that was actually the birth of the Pnp Csi. Okay, so but in 2008, the whole organization was formalized through the SEC registration, etc. So PNPC is like a force multiplier for Leonard. So because he cannot do it alone, so he needs people who would be like him. So those people who really are into native plants would do the same like what Leonard did. Okay, so through Leonard's long career in the field of science and conservation, uh, there is less concentration. He found that there's less concentration on native plants because most of the let's say financial support and attention goes to wild fauna or animals, but little on native flora. But since most of these iconic and very charismatic animals are, which by the way are very also important, most of them only lives on habitats dominated by native plants. So how can that be? So that's why he really forced PNPCSI to happen, so that by protecting the habitat and the native plants, you also protect all of the rest, all of those iconic and all of those endangered eagles, tarsier, etc., etc. So Leonard expanded his reach and influence through the members of PNPCSI all throughout the Philippines. Okay, so this is our old headquarters at the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center in Quezon City. So next slide, please. So these are our missions. So we just copy pasted what Leonard did in our own way because his knowledge and skills are unsurpassed. We tried as a member and an officer of the organization, we tried our best to copy his ways in our own way and in our own little circles. So, but in the beginning, it was Leonard himself who does all of these things. So whether he was already tired from his work as from an NGO organization, he would still go back to PNPCSI and do all of those tagging, inventory at the Ninoy Aquino Park, etc., etc. So that's how passionate Leonard was. Okay, so we also had partnership with the DNR, formerly the PAUB, or right now it's already the BMB or the Biodiversity Management Bureau. So that was where our first headquarters was. Next slide, please. But unfortunately, Leonard didn't live a long life. He was killed in action in 2010, November of 2010, while looking for mother plants somewhere in Leyte. So he was killed. So everyone was, totally lost because of his unfortunate loss. But Leonard's legacy lives on because he has this organization called the PNPCSI, and we felt that we shouldn't be uh, affected. We should go on and fight for what he's fighting for all of his life. So in the first place, we created a new icon or a new emblem or logo for the PNPCSI. It is the Rafflesia leonardii. That species was named uh, for Leonard Co by Dr. Julie Barcelona. So it was a very iconic symbol. This design was designed by artist Ronald Achocoso and Nika Peralejo. So this is a very iconic. It's like a lighthouse. So this is like an emblem wherein people would follow the best for Philippine native plants conservation. So later on, we had this first Philippine native plants, the Leonard, the honoring Leonard Co. We had this first PNPCSI International Symposium, first to honor him and to make it an annual scientific event. Okay, and we partnered with the National Museum, and also we partnered with Geyser Maclang and some of the corporations like Maxes and Krispy Kreme. So after that, there were several leaders of Pnp Csi, and right now we're very glad that we have Dr. Sandra Yap as our current president. So next slide, please. So if people thinks that naming plants or looking for plants is actually not high tech, actually it's very high tech, because if you send someone who doesn't know plants at all and you would send them to the forest, hey, could you name all of these plants? I cannot, because I don't know anything about taxonomy and botany. Uh, that's the strength of the Pnp Csi, knowing the native plants and giving it a higher pedestal among all exotics and giving it more value than exotics. So right now there's already a shift, because we're currently having a global crisis on the pandemic, but people can still have this connection with us and the rest of the scientific community, especially through our Facebook page and the Cost Digital Flora, which is a very strategic and a very comprehensive tool, online tool to gather information about native plants and conservation. And we cannot forget Leonard, because he's the best, and he's the idol, and he's an icon. So if we simply follow him, maybe we can help protect the native plants in the future. So it's like a legacy. There's actually a movie dedicated to him. It's like Walang Hanggang Buhay ni Leonard Coe. And hopefully there would be a Walang Hanggang Buhay for Leonard Coe and his legacy. Next slide, please. And I would end this presentation with a saying from Leonard. He said this to me: you know, you cannot protect something you don't understand. So better you understand native plants first, and then the rest would follow. Okay, so I hope I inspired you to go into native plants. So thank you very much, and have a nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arbias, for giving us an overview of Pnp Csi. That was a very enlightening presentation that perfectly encapsulates what the group is all about. Our next speaker is Dr. Sandra Yap, the current president of the Philippine Native Plant Conservation Society, who will share with us the initiatives, advocacies, and various projects that the group is involved with. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Yap.
Hi. So good afternoon, and so my task is, after following Anthony, to tell you about sort of what we get up to in the society to address the advocacies that our founder Leonard Coe sort of inspired us to do. And like Anthony, who can talk about him for a very long time, so could I. I was also mentored by him, and so hence my my position in the society, sort of in honor of what he had sort of mentored me to do. Like Anthony, I was inspired by him, and while I was pre-med in college, now I completed a degree in ecology and evolutionary biology, and still work on native plants to this day. So I would say that that's due to Sir Leonard. And so Anthony had already shown this list of our 6 goals that the society has. These were established in the inception of the society because of Sir Leonard's ideas. So he'd already said that ultimately the goal of Pnp Csi was so we could popularize native plants, and so then people will appreciate these native plants. He'd already indicated that we have almost 10,000 species of native plants, so that's a lot of plants to learn about, which meant that we wanted to stimulate research on all these different species as well, and advocate for restoring these natural habitats. promote these ideas and expertise so that we could pursue conservation and even the propagation of native plants, which could lead to these discussions on responsible horticultural activities. That way, instead of collecting from the wild, that would compromise these wild populations, these natural populations, we could instead grow these plants. And then lastly, to link these conservation activities that we have all planned with knowledge from indigenous peoples who know about sustainable management of different habitats. So we have a variety of activities. The first ones I'll show you are the ones Anthony's actually already mentioned, which were due to Sir Leonard's these were started by him, which I think brought like Anthony and the other sort of initial members of the society, and even Miss Amor, who was dragged into the society because of interest and these activities like these tree walks. These are what we call a primer to native plants. Typically, these are done in urban green spaces due to accessibility. So we usually hold them within UP Diliman, the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center, and Arroceros Park. And occasionally, we get invited to do special tree walks in like private subdivisions and whatnot. But for the most part, these tree walks are introductory. They tell you what species are native and what are not. And you'd be surprised that you thought one was the other, but apparently it's not. And then a more immersive activity are these field trips that are usually done out of town. And we typically can only take in a smaller group. But here is where we can go more in depth, not just with identification of species, but also talk a little bit more about their ecology and the ecosystem services that they provide. I put in a list of where we've gone in the past, and hopefully we can go and visit them again with different groups of people who might be interested in joining. We've included some tree planting activities within the last decade in order to enhance urban biodiversity. So we do tree plantings within cities and outside so that we can restore forests. Aside from being outdoors, which is what Sir Leonard did prefer, and honestly, that's also how he hooked me in. I joined him on a trip to Palanan in the Sierra Madres, and I never looked back. But aside from being outdoors, we do indoor activities like lectures, seminars, and workshops. We tap the expertise of some of our members from across various fields of plant sciences. But the more popular one is our basic taxonomy seminar, which I guess is similar to what Sir Leonard used to teach, which is, showing students or any participants who joined him on these trips to be able to tell, what was a simple leaved and a compound leaf plant and all that jazz. So we keep getting requests to continue basic taxonomy seminars, but we also cover different topics like forest restoration, native ornamentals, even drawing and painting native plants. And more recently, we've done journal clubs where we do a scientific paper assignment, but we have a lead discussant who sort of translates the science into more conversational discussions. We've also made instructional materials, posters, calendars, and other formats. I honestly only had pictures of the calendars because I have them at home. We've covered different topics from different groups of plants, but even like interesting things like places in the Philippines that have been named after plants. And the last one we did was on native flora for urban spaces, as there's been actually sort of an increase in interest for plants that are found in urban settings. More seriously, and honestly, this is I have a bias, I have affinity to these special projects because these are more research-based and actually more time-consuming to complete. But we started doing these even at the very beginning of the society. Doing the first project we did was a survey of the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center. All trees above 2.5 centimeters diameter were surveyed. That included over 4,000 trees. At that time, most of the trees were not native to the Philippines. There were a lot of exotic species. But through the years, there have been several tree planting events at the NAPWC. So I'm certain that by now, this composition will have significantly changed. We've also published a book that guides you to the plants in the Marine Science Institute's Garden of Indigenous and Flowering Trees. We do maintain still the garden in honor of the late national scientist, Dr. Edgardo Gomez, who established this garden. We did a project doing a floristic survey in Mount Tapulao. One of the outputs was a pictorial guide, but also some training for the local guides, which I think this is still Anthony's sort of passion, is to train guides to incorporate native plants in their tours. But aside from these major projects, we also do get involved in other research sort of related activities. We are, like, for example, we're happy to be and privileged to sit in the DNR's Philippine Plant Conservation Committee, which is in charge of updating the national list of threatened Philippine plants. We also occasionally get invited to technical working groups to discuss policies, let's say with maybe in relation to the Wildlife Act and things like that. So those we are proud to participate in. And aside from those particular projects, with regards to research, we are also keen in getting the research done by scientists, student scientists, to academicians, providing a venue for that research via a biennial symposium, which David will talk about a little bit more later, because we're having one this year. And those have been the past activities, and knowing that COVID has kind of limited all of our activities, especially the ones we can go out in the field, we've been limited to digital platforms to continue our advocacy work, but we are continuing plans still to do sort of on-the-ground research as soon as COVID lets us, so that we can do these long-term ecological research studies and monitoring invasive alien species, as well as in situ and ex situ species conservation, aside from the 3 projects that David will actually talk about. So that's all I have to share with you, and thank you for this opportunity to tell you about our activities.
Thank you for that presentation, Dr. Yap. I am proud that we have groups such as Pnp Csi fighting for the preservation of our country's natural beauty and resources. Our next speaker is Mr. David Pless. He's currently the Vice President of Pnp Csi and head of its symposium team for 2021. He is employed as a research associate at the Biodiversity Research Laboratory of UP Diliman's Institute of Biology. For his presentation, he will talk about the upcoming Pnp Csi 6th International Symposium. He will also discuss an important and exciting partnership with Digital Filipinas and Geyser McClang Communications about teching up the environment. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Pless. Mr. Pless, you're on mute.
Kinakabahan ako eh. So yeah, okay. Can you guys hear me now? I'm going to try to take control of the screen now. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk first about Pnp Csi's 6th International Symposium, and then later on about the projects that we're going to be pursuing with GMCI. Okay. So earlier, Doc Sandra summarized the different ways that Pnp Csi pursues its advocacy of native plant conservation. One of the biggest things that we do is that every 2 years, we host the country's only native plant-focused academic symposium. So the symposium is basically a way for us to connect all of these brilliant, hardworking researchers and scientists who we know are doing pioneering work all over the country, so that we can create dialogue, not just between them and the academic community, but also with people's organizations, local government units, and various stakeholders. So if you can imagine, the Philippines is about 7,000 plus different islands, and there are 10,000 plus different species of plants. So the challenge of plant conservation is basically a giant puzzle. Everyone is holding a piece, and the point of the symposium is to bring together all of these pieces so that we can move forward looking at that big picture. That big picture, though, isn't limited only to our country, but is also part of the larger challenge of conserving plant diversity all over the world. So there's so much to learn, and there's so much information to exchange. And we're really lucky that for our symposia, we have speakers, presenters, and collaborators coming from so many different countries, such as the UK, USA, Taiwan, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, China, the works, you name it. So PNP CSI has been doing this for several years now. We started with the first symposium in 2011 with the National Museum of the Philippines. This was to celebrate our founder, Leonard Ko. And since then, we've partnered with many different institutions to explore trends and advances in Philippine plant conservation. So here you see the first symposium with the National Museum, and then we've also partnered with Pampanga State Agricultural University, with UP Diliman, in 2017 with Southern Luzon State University, and then most recently in 2019 with the University of Santo Tomas. So what's new this year is that the current and continuing pandemic situation has forced us to adapt and move everything online. So this makes it a little trickier than our previous symposia, but because this is our first virtual symposium, we'll also be able to reach a much wider audience than ever before. Basically, this time, we don't want plant conservation to stay this secret thing that's happening behind the curtain. And it's not just for scientists and trained professionals anymore. This year, especially with what Sir Anthony mentioned, the recent surge of plantitos and plantitas, we're opening the symposium to the general public. So we want everyone to see the kind of work our scientists are doing, and we want them to see our botanists and conservationists for the heroes that they actually are. Because the symposium is virtual, everyone will get to participate online and for free. So this year we don't have a registration fee. The symposium is totally free. So happening this year from November 15 to 19, the theme for the upcoming symposium is Saving the Plants That Save Us, Conservation of Native Flora Amidst Calamities. So we wanted to explore not just how native plants and their habitats protect us from disasters and pandemics, but also how this whole mess of a pandemic has affected our efforts to study and protect our flora. So we'll be presenting this symposium together with several groups and institutions. So of course, we have Geyser Maklang, who is our sponsor and special advocacy partner. And we also have our IT partner who will help us co-host the symposium, the Center for Batangas Studies of De La Salle Lipa. We also have a few program partners who lead some of the symposium events, and also our media partners who will be helping to promote the event and our advocacy. So depicted here are some of our partners: Coast Digital Flora of the Philippines, Philippine Botanical Art Society, the Philippine Taxonomic Initiative, Forest Foundation Philippines, the Environmental Leadership and Training Initiative, Far Eastern University, Visayas State University, and Philippine Parks and Biodiversity. So, I mean, dito pa lang sa sponsors, you can already see that there's a lot of environmental work going around, and this is our chance to promote that work and to see that, to have everyone see that, you know, lots of things are happening for Philippine plant conservation. We're also lucky to have very esteemed plenary speakers who will be opening the program every evening to talk about their years of experience in documenting and conserving the diversity of our flora and the many, many benefits that they provide to people. So, for instance, we'll have Dr. Ramon Razal from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and also Director Michael Calaramo from the Northwestern University Ecological Park and Botanic Gardens. That's up in Ilocos. And then I'm also really excited to say that we'll be having Dr. Alex Antonelli from the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew joining us from the UK. Besides our plenary speakers, of course, we'll also have a suite of different oral and poster presentations by researchers and conservationists from different corners of the country. I've actually seen some of the submitted abstracts, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, pero medyo kinikilig ako dun sa research that they'll be presenting. I've seen, I mean, off the top of my head, there's like work on protecting rare and threatened species, describing new ones. There's some papers about learning about medicinal uses of plants and also how they've responded to recent disasters like typhoons or the eruption of Taal. So much is happening. There's so much to learn. And because everything is virtual, you don't have to worry about missing anything. Besides that, we're also going to be hosting a botanical art workshop together with Miss Bing Famoso Takan, who is the founder of the Philippine Botanical Art Society and also the Philippine Taxonomic Initiative. So yung PTI, they've been very, very busy and hard at work describing species considered new to science over the past 2 years. And together with Philbus, participants will get a chance to learn to draw and paint some of these recently described species, so that by the end, everybody is going to have an artwork that they can be proud of, and everybody will become a native plant artist. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, we're going to be honoring our founder, Leonard Ko, through tributes and video messages. And finally, we'll be broadcasting our very own State of the Nation's plants. So in collaboration with Coast Digital Flora of the Philippines. So I think it was mentioned earlier, and I think I answered a question in the comments about Coast Digital Flora. It's a digital checklist of all the vascular plants that can be found in the country. So for 10 years, the CDFP team has been working to engage the botanical and enthusiast community here in the Philippines to document and collect photos of all of that diversity through citizen science. So we'll celebrate their 10th anniversary during the symposium. And then with their help, we'll get an overview of how much we know about flora and how far we still have to go to ensure their protection. So yeah, it's going to be a jam-packed event. There's going to be a little something for everyone. So we're inviting all of you guys to join us. Again, registration is free, so you can sign up through the link below or by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. You can also find the link to our symposium and lots of other details about it on our Facebook page. Okay, so that's the first half of my presentation. Now I'm going to be talking a bit about our Teching Up the Environment partnership with GMCI. So GMCI has been and will continue to be a very big part of our symposium moving forward. As one of our sponsors and our special advocacy partner, GMCI will be working with Pnp Csi in the months after the symposium to pursue even more programs that will allow us to integrate technology with our advocacy. So on behalf of GMCI and my fellow Pnp Csi leads, Doc Sandra and Sir Anthony, I'm going to be giving a quick overview of the suite of 3 interconnected projects that we're looking to explore and develop. So we'll be trying to do video tours to bring the richness of our rainforests to your fingertips, a citizen science app to connect Filipinos for conservation, and tokenization of native trees and carbon sinks to help corporations follow through on their net zero aspirations. Everything is still a work in progress, so this part will be very brief, but we're hoping that by sharing our plans with GMCI, we can encourage other companies and corporations to follow suit. Okay, so for the people we work with, Pnp Csi members, academics, everything we say about native flora might already be plain as day. It's very obvious. But for many other Filipinos, there might still be a lot of questions. What makes a plant native? What do these plants look like? Where can we find them? And most importantly, why should I care? The thing is, our country's greatest treasure, its competitive advantage, the asset that we have that no one else has, also happens to be one of our best kept secrets. We have so much incredible diversity that's endemic to our forests, totally unique to us, but a lot of people aren't aware that it exists. It doesn't come to mind at all during the everyday experience. So together with GMCI, we want to add to the growing amount of online content out there that talks about our diversity. So we'll start with 1 or 2 pilot sites, but ultimately the goal of these video tours is to replicate the Pnp Csi tree walk experience, to take Filipinos into our forests and our protected areas to see these amazing and vibrant living beings up close and personal. Yeah, so here are some pictures of previous tree walks. All of us in Pnp Csi, we really miss going on tree walks. We can't right now. It's not a great or secure time, but we're thinking that maybe the video tours will help us bring this experience to people. And in the future, with the right support and funding, maybe we'll be able to partner with different protected areas, with LGUs, eco resorts, and then we can pair these online videos with our on-the-ground tree walks so that when people watch these videos, and they say, oh, I want to go out there and see it, we'll be there. We'll be waiting. And as more individuals, more communities become enchanted by our native flora, we want to show Filipinos that anyone can participate in plant conservation. So you don't have to be a botanist to contribute to the body of knowledge that we're trying to grow. Anyone can be a citizen scientist. So with GMCI and its partners with Digital Filipinas, we hope to develop an app to collect, store, and analyze citizen science data. So I did something similar to this for my master's project, where I went online, put up a Facebook page, and I said, "Hey everyone, this is the plant I'm studying. This is what it looks like. Have you seen it?" And in the few short months that I had to work on the project, quite a few people came out and they said, "Yes, I think I've seen that where I'm from," or "Hey, is this the thing you're looking for?" And so together we were able to take that citizen science data and that information from scientists on social media, and we found out which provinces these species still exist in, or where they have been for a while, but they've never been recorded. So with GMCI and Digital Filipinas, we can tailor fit an app basically to collect the kind of data we need, make it easily accessible, and connect it with our other projects like our 3 walks. So you can have people walking around a famous ecotourism site or a well-known hiking trail, and you use the app to record data on pre-marked trees. So for example, you can take note if it's flowering or fruiting. If there are seedlings, you can take note of how tall they've grown already. And some of that data might eventually then become useful to forest restoration initiatives in the area. So suddenly your weekend hike isn't just a getaway to relax and have fun. It's also a way to contribute to science. And there are a couple of ways that this could eventually evolve into finding quote unquote missing species that haven't been seen for a while, but they were described a century ago, or mapping maybe the extent of invasive species in cities and rural areas. So we're looking forward to working with GMCI and Digital Filipinas to explore the limits of what technology might be able to do for citizen science. And then finally, we have the Native Carbon Sink project. So through this final component, we hope to mobilize that awareness and appreciation from our video tours and our citizen science project towards bigger, more concrete, on-the-ground forest restoration actions. So if in the previous components, the idea was to empower individuals to contribute to plant conservation, with this next component, the idea is that entire corporations can contribute to, and in fact, do more of the heavy lifting in terms of protecting the plants that protect us. So as far as we've talked about it, and there's still so much to discuss, PNP Csi will be using its members' expertise and information collected from our pilot sites in other components to establish native carbon sinks, restoring patches of lost forest using native species. And then with GMCI and its partners in Digital Filipinas, we can create a mechanism to tokenize these native trees and these carbon sinks, facilitating companies who want to advance their net zero aspirations while also funneling monetary support to the conservation projects that really, really need them. So as the project progresses, we'll be looking at ways to have that system and its outputs accredited by global standards. So for example, there's the verified carbon standard or the gold standard for global goals. So hopefully we'll be able to generate funding, not just for the establishment of these carbon sinks and nurseries, but also for their continued management and also for the rangers and staff who will be carrying out that work on the ground. So that's about all I can say for now, although parang ang dami kong sinabi. Thank you to everyone for joining us here today and listening to our presentation. We hope to see you guys at the symposium this November. Reminder, it's November 15 to 19 and the registration is free. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can contact us through these avenues. There's our email address, pnpcsi@gmail.com. You can also reach us for symposium-related concerns at symposium@pnpcsi.org. And you can find us on our social media channels on Facebook and Twitter, basically /PNPCSI. So thank you again, everybody. And now I guess I'm turning everyone over to GMCI again for the rest of the program. Oh, sorry. And before I end, some quick credits. So thank you to Isai Rodriguez for all of our symposium publicity materials. The event photos came from the PNPCSI Facebook page. And of course, the graph for the progress of photo documentation of CDFP comes from CDFP's website. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us a glimpse into that great partnership, merging technology and the environment, Mr. Pless. It's truly something to look forward to. On this note, I would like to introduce our next batch of speakers and corporate advocates. First is Miss Maria Yolanda Crisanto, the Corporate Communications Group Senior Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer of Globe Telecom. Miss Crisanto is a multi-awarded professional, both local and international, in her fields of expertise, specifically communications, sustainability practice, and corporate social responsibility. Among her international awards include the 2018 Asia's top sustainability superwomen in Singapore, 101 most impactful CSR leaders, a global listing for 2019 in Mumbai, and the first Filipino to be recognized with a Communications for Future C4F Davos Award in Geneva. She recently received the recognition Woman of Worth by the World Leadership Awards given by CMO Global. Everyone, please welcome Miss Crisanto.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Okay, all right. So, quite an introduction, really. Not so used to that kind of introduction. Anyway, I just wanted to say good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Amor. And thank you to the Pnp Csi for inviting us to be with you. I feel so privileged kasi I am amongst the true blue plantitos and plantitas. So I have a feeling na parang nagpapanggap lang ako, di ba? Even though mahilig din ako maghalaman sa bahay, just because of this pandemic gave me time to be with plants, right? And to be able to rear plants like they are my children as well. At any rate, I just have a few slides for you because I think we want to have a lot of discussion also, time for discussion. And I just wanted to introduce you first to who Globe Telecom is. Everybody knows that we are a telco company, but not a lot of people know that we are now more than just a telco. We are a digital solutions group with a market value of 363 billion, with serving 85 million customers nationwide. So if you take a look at the logos that are in this circle, these are all of the products and services of Globe, not only just products and services, but also companies under the entire Globe group. So nakikita niyo dyan yung GCash, Consulta MD, Kickstart is our venture capital, Health Now is our health app with a JV with AC Health of Ayala. We also have our own studios, which is Globe Live and Globe Studios. At meron din kami sarili naming advertising agency, which is AdSpark. And I don't know if you know, but we have our own lifestyle company, which we call the 917 Lifestyle. Ito po yung gumagawa ng mga t-shirts and all of those knickknacks that you see inside the Globe store. No? And finally, we have our Asticom, which is a manpower company. So if you need people to man your businesses, meron din po yan sa Globe. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm here to talk about the sustainability program, specifically on the environment side. No? So sustainability at Globe is actually very huge. So I'm going to focus solely on the environment side of ESG. No? Just want to maybe if you're asking, saan ba nanggagaling? Where does the sustainability practice of Globe comes from? Well, it comes from our mission and our purpose. So our purpose is that in everything we do, we treat people right to create a globe of good. So we act responsibly using the 10 UN Global Compact principles on human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. In terms of the SDG, Globe is committed to 10 of the 17 SDGs, and we try to find opportunities in businesses through the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of our environment commitment, kanina nabanggit ng previous speaker about carbon sinks and net zero. So we are into that because we have signed off to TCFD, and we have also signed off and committed to Science-Based Targets Initiative. Alongside being a supporter or signatory to the UN Global Compact. Now, we as part of the telco industry globally, We are all committed to Race to Zero, and our ambition is to follow the 1.5 degrees Celsius reduction. No? And then in terms of our focus areas, we are looking at creating a digital nation, creating positive societal impact, caring for people and caring for environment, all aligned to the 10 SDGs that we're also committed to. Next slide. So in terms of TCFD, this is our climate risk management under the TCFD framework, where we look at governance, strategy, and all of the SBT. And our medium-term target is to be able to align to the Paris Agreement of not going over the 1.5 degrees. Okay, and the long-term target is to be carbon neutral by 2050 as a participant to Race to Zero, which is essentially the reason why we're getting into carbon sinks, and which I will discuss with you. Okay, so what are the benefits of nature-based solutions coming from a corporate lens like Globe, right? We recognize the importance of ecosystem-based approaches for our communities and businesses. These kinds of solutions will act as agents for carbon sequestration. Ito na yung tinatawag na carbon sink because it helps us achieve Race to Zero goals. It also helps create climate resilient communities because in the way that we do our nature-based solution, we work with the ecosystem of the area. So later on, I will explain there are a lot of areas that we go into, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and how we practice nature-based solutions using the people that are endemic, especially yung mga tinatawag nating yung mga Aitas, no? Yung mga the people that live in the area. Okay, we make sure that as part of the ecosystem, we include them in the development of the area. And also, it helps address over-reliance on gray infrastructure because yung green technologies such as mangroves, for instance, we want to be able to put up mangroves more than we want to be able to put up breakwater, no? Yung talagang infrastructure lang na building lang na ganon. So as much as possible, we want this to be as green as possible. And then finally, it offers cost-effective solutions to businesses because having multi-stakeholder partnerships provide various benefits to businesses, communities, and even with the help of government agency. So earlier on, Amor was talking about all of business approach, all of society approach. Through the corporate lens, we keep on partnering with as many as we can, NGOs, corporates, also NGAs, right? Because we feel that we can't do it alone. And the expertise clearly is not with us, right? Although we do have the capital to spend in order to help protect whatever is left of our environment. Okay. Next slide. So in terms of our environment stewardship in Luzon and Visayas, we have partnered with the Mead Foundation in Zambales in 2019 and the ZSL, so Zoological Society of London, last year. They help us in terms of our carbon sinks in Zambales and Iloilo. No? So in terms of methodology, we have reforested 3 hectares in Iba. And then we utilize pioneer species, including Caliandra and vetiver, and native tree species such as Binayuyo. And for ZSL, we utilize ZSL for Iloilo in the Visayas region, where we plant mangrove species in various vulnerable coastal communities. So we have employed 46 members and supported 100 more than 100 families of displaced Aita communities. So like I said, no, yung IPs natin, the indigenous peoples, we partner with them so that we can help them also and be part of the development. So may note po dito sa atin si PNP CSI President na hindi daw po native ang Kaliandra sa Philippines. Well noted, sir. But yung partners po natin kasi, yan po ang kanilang methodology na ibinigay sa atin, which inapprove naman po ng DENR. Siguro po, if you can provide us with better methodologies, we are more than willing to listen to you and help us also in this endeavor. Now, alongside these carbon sinks, we also use a one globe approach. So kumbaga, as we help the environment, the business relationship of our company, Globe, in terms of the community where we are in, whether it's in Iloilo or in Zambales, we are able to get the support of the local government units there and the local government agencies there to be able to put up the much needed communications facilities that the area also needs. So aside from helping protect the environment, we are also being able to have been given the leeway to put up the much needed ICT infrastructure like the cell sites, no? And we all know that the cell sites are really needed if we are to be a digital Philippines or a digital Filipinas, right? Without the cell sites, without the signal, without those kinds of infrastructure, we will never achieve the digital Filipinas ambition that we want to get ourselves into, right? So in return naman, we also deploy affordable community Wi-Fi services that will help benefit also the households in the community. Another use case, next slide please, is in Mindanao. Now in Mindanao, we partnered with Hinaluban since the 2016. And what's good about Hinaluban in Bukidnon is that they use geotagging. So there is an element of technology in the conservation, in the environment conservation. Okay, so we partnered here with the NR. We partnered with the foundation in order for us to reforest 156 hectares with indigenous tree species. Ayan. Nakikita nyo naman, it's all disclosed. So if there are any trees that are not indigenous here, let us know also. Okay? Sabi ko nga, kayo na po ang true blue plantito at plantitas, right? Alongside the planting of interim species, we also utilize the planting of the real Philippine native trees there in Bukidnon. And the efforts have resulted in increased biodiversity. Now, what is the impact of what we are doing here in Bukidnon? We have supported more than 52 indigenous families through rainforestation and food security programs. And as a result, again, we were able to put up 3 new cell site installations in Bukidnon in 2021, at least 124 LTE site upgrades in 21 cities and towns in the province, which is very important to Globe. Not only to Globe, it's also very important to the communities surrounding these areas because they will be given the connectivity that they need. Next slide. Now, how do we meld technology with our environmental ambitions? So our stewardship even comes from the comfort of the homes of our customers, because we allow our customers to partake and participate in preservation and conservation of the environment. if you have the Globe One app, if you have downloaded the Globe Rewards, or if you have downloaded Gcash, these are all applications of Globe. If you're a postpaid customer or a prepaid customer, you can download these apps, and it's very helpful. Now, inside those applications, meron tayong tinatawag na in GCash, yung ating G-Forest. So in G-Forest, every time you have a digital transaction using the app, you earn points. And those points allows you to physically plant the trees. Syempre, it's the customer is not physically planting. We are planting the trees for the customer. But by coming up with these rewards points and these point systems in GCash, right? So parang bonus na nila, right? It's parang rewards and bonus na nila. Reward and for their loyalty, and bonus na nila for using the digital application all the time. Ba? So this makes it very, very easy for our customers to partake of tree planting activities that are really important also. And the trees that we plant are actually not the usual trees. So you'll be surprised, meron diyang nara, there's dugon, there's yakal. Ito yung pang long-lasting native Philippine trees din. Okay? Next slide. And so the Globe of Good journey continues by leveraging on our experiences for continuous improvement. We shift to a digital lifestyle, maximizing our platforms, and innovating, leading in the digital transformation. We make sure that we continue to engage our customers and stakeholders and choose the partners that use science-based approach, because our learnings through time is that the survivability rate of reforestation is actually very low. And we're just only too happy and too glad to have come up with partners, that actually increase the survivability rate. And talagang meron tayong nakikita na merong nakatanim at merong tumutubo doon sa mga kalbong na bundok, no? And so we make sure that we involve our customers in our environmental advocacies. And then we continue to implement carbon reduction measures by shifting to clean energy sources for all of our corporate facilities and expanding our nature-based solutions in key areas nationwide. Again, we're more than willing to partner with experts like yourselves. If you feel that we can help you in the proliferation and the creation of more carbon sinks in the country, please just give us a call. Amor knows how to find me, how to find us. So just let us know. And finally, comply with the global ESG frameworks. Finally, I'd like to end my talk with this, right? So for all of us that are practicing sustainability, the penultimate measure is really the ratings that the company get. It's like, this is ESG ratings, is like your financial ratings. It's like if you're looking at a country, it's like the sovereign ratings of the Philippines. No? So in ESG, we are being rated by MSCI or the Morgan Stanley with a rate of A, which is average. No? Average is not the ambition, but it is good enough for now, especially since the practice of sustainability in the Philippines is still very young. For Moody's, we have been ranked as the top 100 best emerging market performers. Sustainalytics, we're also at medium risk. And we are also disclosing to the Carbon Disclosure Project. We have earned a B- 2020 score for CDP. And for FTSE4Good, we have been in this index for about 6 years now. And in terms of governance, we have been given several accolades in terms of our the way that we do our disclosures and in terms of our governance practices. we're being named as the best corporate governance by telecoms, by the London Ethical Boardroom for Telecoms in Asia 2019. And we're also in the top 20 ASEAN publicly listed companies, top 3 publicly listed companies in the Philippines, and the ASEAN Asset Class publicly listed companies, all under the ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard. Thank you very much. So I'll end my talk there. I'm very willing to listen and discuss with you later on. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Ms. Crisanto, for sharing us with the various ways that Globe Telecom is helping the environment, as well as the technological initiatives of the company. Our next speaker is Ms. Marvie Rebueno Trudeau, the Deputy Executive Director of Filipina Shell Foundation Incorporated, the social arm of the shell companies in the Philippines. Ms. Trudeau is an advocate for social progress. She looks into the implementation of social investment programs in a holistic manner. She believes that whatever program is implemented, be it public health or environmental conservation, it can only be addressed if it looks at the root causes of the social ills. Hence, the program she implements will always be a combination of addressing poverty, enhancing capacities in health, or acquiring skills to support livelihood, nutrition, food, security, and access to energy. Today, she'll be discussing some of the projects of PSFI relevant to the theme of protecting the plants that protect us. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Trudeau.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'd like to say that I actually am so inspired by everything that I've listened so far, and I actually follow also the things that Globe does. But in this session today, I will try to get into the theme. But let me introduce first who Shell Foundation is. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our why. Shell Foundation was established in 1982, in September of 1982. Basically, looking into the poverty in the Philippines at the time, and the communities where Shell has an operation, and Shell's intent to help. And so that was how we were sort of formed, because there was a lot of, I think when we started, it was the returning rebels in Negros and everything else that looked into poverty and the like. Next slide, please. The process for us is that we look into the needs assessment of the community, and then we develop the program and we build the partnerships that are linked to responding to the needs. So the needs may not just be environment. The needs might be more for livelihood or lack of livelihood. And eventually, if you look at all of this, environment will always be touched in one way or the other. But as we go along, harnessing the sustainable resources that are available, and then we eventually implement the programs, we are always aiming for a resilient community. Always. We want to be able to get out of that community and know fully well that the community is going to be able to prosper on their own, given all of the startups that we have provided. Of course, we always have the monitoring and evaluation as we go along, and of course, the dedicated team that we have to provide. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the SDG that our programs are aligned to. We are basically looking into 6 SDGs out of the 17. And as I said, it was always livelihood when we started. Now we look into STEM and education. Health is a big factor. And when we started, we were only looking at the Shell sites. But with our entry in the health, and we were getting really big grants from external sources globally, we were able to actually implement projects nationwide. And so that I will look into. And then, of course, we have environment and energy. How can we not have energy projects when we are an energy firm? And so we provide microgrid systems in communities that will never be given light in the next 5 to 10 years. So if it's a community that is relevant to our operations, then that community, no matter how far they are from the grid, we are looking into providing the microgrid system for them. And of course, nutrition and food and security. Next slide. So in a nutshell, this is what we have done over the years. We have provided 8 communities with solar power. No, not just solar power, but hybrid microgrid system. So it has solar power, wind, and sometimes hydro if it's available. And then it's backed up by a diesel generator. So for all of these communities that we have worked with, there's actually 24/7. They have better energy reliability in those communities than where I am in Puerto Princesa. So, and we have, of course, provided this to over 6,000 individuals. We have had many programs when we started internally that Shell provided that looks into healthcare facilities. We went into STEM, this is science, technology, engineering, and math, and we granted scholarships for this STEM. We have 18,495 farmers. Let me, talk about this a little bit. Shell has been working or developing the inoculants. These are the composting inoculants and the soil enrichment inoculant. And so we have this program called Integrated Farming Biosystems, where we actually provide these inoculants as to the farmers so that they can use their own waste to make their own fertilizers and be able to actually have better yield using the waste that they have as their fertilizers instead of buying the chemical fertilizers. And so, having done that, and that was in partnership. We started with the liquid, and then we went into the powder formula in partnership with UPLB. This was actually checked by the Biotech, the National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology, to check if the microorganisms that we claim are in this inoculants are actually there. So we have that certification that this inoculants that we use actually have the microorganisms that are needed to help in the enrichment of the soil and the decomposing of waste to make the fertilizers. And to all of this, we have actually planted over 200,000 trees. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, as I said, when we started, we were just looking at the areas where Shell operates. Let's go back to that one. The last one. I just want to say how we were able to, can we go? Yes, we were able to go back. We were able to go nationwide because we were able to get funds since 2006. After we've started, in 1999, we've started the malaria program in Palawan. And because of the success of that program, we were able to get more funds to replicate the project in the whole country. And as of 2019, we have 60 provinces that have been declared malaria-free and 18 provinces that are waiting to be declared malaria-free. In the Philippines, it takes takes 5 years of zero for malaria to for a province to be declared malaria free. So all of these 18 provinces are now zero, but are waiting for their 5 years of zero. In terms of barangays, in 2019, 129 are still affected by, out of the 42,000 barangays in the Philippines, are still affected by malaria. This has gone down now to 124 as of last year. So we have a new grant also that is nationwide, and that's the HIV grant. And of course, we were also able to get some grant money as a response to COVID-19. I'm saying this because even if this is a health program, eventually you look into the needs of the volunteers that are there, and you look into what they need, and you start talking about livelihood or lack of livelihood or poverty. Then you have to talk about, how do you help her or the volunteer in the sense of being able to work in a health program, but still being able to bring food in the table of their families. And so a lot of this we've had to train with IFPS, and we provided the inoculants. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. Inoculants, and we're able to provide both the service and the food on the table. I will start with our one of our this is an ecotourism project, which is called Tandigan, and it's Turismo at Negosyo Dulot ng Ingat Kalikasan. And this is actually done when we started this. This was just to support the underground river. If you know that there's a lot of communities on the underground river, you cannot just go to the underground river and look at the underground river and come back. There are a lot of areas there that are really important in biodiversity and ecosystem that needed to be looked into, taken care of. And the way we did it was to organize these communities into ecotourism and ensure that all of them were provided the right training on ecosystems and the like. And by doing this, by doing all of this, you go back to how do you enhance the beauty that you already have, the resources that you have in the communities are the reasons why people come in. And so one of the organizations was the mangrove paddle tour boat. How can you not help them create more nurseries for their mangroves if their means of livelihood is to promote the mangroves that they show in their tour? And how can you not provide a nursery and planting as part of their activities for the people at the jungle trail of the underground river? So all of this, although it looks like it's really just ecotourism, we went into actually providing nurseries in each of these sites in order to be able to provide more seedlings to enhance the resources that they have. And so for this, as you can see, we have created 706 jobs, tour guides, boatmen, waiters. I'd like to also mention that in the mangrove paddle boat tour, there was a guy there who has learned so much on ecology, ecosystem, that we sometimes bring him to the elementary schools to provide some IEC, and then he says, I'm only grade 3 and now I'm teaching. And so there are many things that have been the barriers that have been broken by this program. There were over almost 3,500 community reach by awareness campaigns, environmental conservation sessions, and there were many of them, 1,500, who had various trainings on environmental protection. And a lot of them were actually accredited by the City Tourism Office. And the Department of Education also picked up our uh, um, environmental modules and actually put it as part of their programs for the tourism group. And so we, because of all of this, we've actually planted over 100,000 trees in Puerto Princesa, in El Nido, and Taytay. And we have planted 120,000 propagules in about 12 hectares of breakwater areas. So I'm very proud of this project. Next slide, please. The next slide will just be pictures. See, this is, and of course we were against the use of single-use plastic, and we've done all of this. And so this is the jungle, the Sabang Jungle Trail, and we are supporting that. The Mauyon River Cruise, we are supporting that. Then there's a lot of firefly there, and the like, and of course the Sabang Mangrove. And this group is making, millions of pesos until the pandemic came. But after the pandemic, we had to refocus them, and we had to provide them with a lot of IFBS, or Integrated Farming Biosystems modules, so that they can have food on the table as we go through this pandemic. Next slide, please. The next slide is something that is that Amor likes to do too. I'm a diver myself. But the importance of this supporting the Tutbataha is actually because a lot of these spawning areas, the eggs and the little fish that come from Tubataha are actually going into the entire the ocean of Palawan, and therefore it actually increased the productivity in the country. My reason for actually bringing this up is that there is an island. Next slide, please. There is an island in Tubataha full of here. If you can see my cursor, I'm sorry, you cannot see my cursor thing down. Full of birds, and these islands are actually something that we're really looking into, because we've lost all of the trees in those islands. And therefore, we have been supporting them by doing annual tree planting. We're not being very successful in this, and because as soon as we put the tree, the birds perch on it, and so we have to cage the trees so that they grow. Out of the 400, we have only 100 that survived in the last 2 years. And therefore, this is something that I would like to request expertise from the people who are here. Next slide, please. Next slide. No, we also have a carbon sink project in Banahaw. In the carbon sink project, it's in an 87-hectare forest reserve, and it's maintained basically by the Eco Warriors of Dolores. And this is in partnership with the Dolores LGU, the National Power Corporation, and the Star Trek project of Shell. And so we provide alternative livelihood for the people. We have families that are doing the seedlings that are also being paid for it, and there are also peoples in the 2 barangays that we provided the integrated farming biosystems. And for this one, we have 98,000 trees that were planted. And I'm not sure if these are all indigenous, But these are the trees that we planted: kulalabang, makaasim, acacia, anubing, tuay, langka, and amugis, balubo. And then it looks like there was 12,000 trees in the nurseries that were also established. And this one actually is looking into the carbon sequestration. And the estimate was we are doing about 38.8 tons of CO2 equivalent. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the area. This is the area where we that was given to us for the reforestation. Next slide. Okay, and if you can see, we actually did the did the GPS, so we know exactly where we planted. It's a big area, and so we can come back to the same area and site, so we can measure how it grows and the like. And if you can see how difficult it is to traverse that area, bringing all of the seedlings. These are the seedlings at the ground that are actually being done by the communities. So that's our carbon sink project in Mount Banahaw. Next slide. The next project is, okay, so this is what we did in Mount Banahaw. We organized the community, people's organization. We provided training, including the leadership enhancement and attitude development. So that's a personal development program, and of course, disaster risk management and how to handle grant funds. And how we did it in terms of sustainability is that we integrated actually the program to our another program called Livewire, where we provide capital to an upcoming group or organizations that can show us that they can move forward, right? And the products of these organizations that are on the ground are actually being used as corporate giveaways, and our Ani para sa Suki, which is in the select sites. You have fresh goods and that are offered, and these are the people that actually provide it. And then of course we have the marketing link that was done by the partnership. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, the last one that I will be discussing would be the clonal nursery and bamboo propagation. We have this facility. If you see the picture in the middle, it's in partnership with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And what we have done was to geotag and identify the parent tree in Quezon protected landscape, and we were able to get 9,832 cuttings from about 29 identified parent tree. And it goes into this recovery beds, and then it goes to the rooting beds, and then there's a hardening portion and the like. And then this is the cloning thing that is being done. We clone the clumps of the bamboo, and we propagate it. Next slide, please. Okay, the Shell Training Farm is a home to the first privately owned clonal nursery and bamboo facility. It was established in 2018. This was an oil refinery before, and so when we closed it, this was actually a very good use of refinery area that has been closed. So we are now, right now, there are more than 7,000 clones of trees, and I was going to provide the names. I will give you that later, but the family and also the same number of bamboos that have actually been cloned and are now ready to be dispersed, distributed. We should have distributed a lot of this last year, but because of the COVID-19, we are now looking into distributing the same within the year or next year, but we will continue to do that. In the bamboo, we started with kawayang tinik, and now we are trying to propagate also the giant bamboo. I don't know if you guys will. Is giant bamboo part of the indigenous? Anyway, so it looks into environmental protection. Now, the nurseries of Palawan have also followed suit in the bamboo propagation and now included the bamboos in the 3 nurseries that are supported in Palawan. So they've started doing this and only this year, and they've already started to produce 3,000 seedlings. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Trudeau, for sharing with us the various ways that Filipina Shell Foundation Incorporated is helping the environment. That is truly inspiring. Our next and final speaker is the Vice President for Business Development of Mega Global Corporation, Mr. Michael Chu Lim, who will talk about the numerous ways that their company is contributing to the environmental protection and sustainability. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Lim.
Thank you, Sir Joseph. Of course, thank you, Amor, for inviting us to speak. It was truly inspiring hearing about what Globe and Shell has been doing for the environment. And we only hope to be able to copy or mimic what they've done in the whole of the Philippines. But what I'd like to share today is what we as a small company are able to do on our own to help with sustainability, to help with ensuring that our local plants and through carbon sinks as well help with the ecosystem of the area. Next slide, please. Or do I do that myself? Do I trigger the next slide myself? Next slide, please. Okay, while we're waiting, Mega Sardines is the newest and youngest sardines brand out there. But given that we are only 10 years old, we are now the #1 sardines brand in the Philippines, and this did not happen by chance. No, so we really put a lot of effort into our brand image, and of course, part of that is our role towards sustainability. So we have a lot of products, but of course, most people would know us from our sardines, Mega Sardines. Next slide, please. So throughout the years, 30, 40 years ago, I remember that we used to fish in the waters of Palawan. And this was when I was young. We're actually from Palawan ourselves. And eventually we moved to the Sulu Sea, far from Tubataha, of course. And eventually, we settled ourselves in Zamboanga. So in the fishing industry, you've heard of other countries practicing quota system, closed fishing season. So the Philippines never had that, and we were kind of trying to work with the government, BFAR, to actually come up with data so that we can use data to determine when the best time to really close the fishing season. But the problem was, 5 to 8 years later, no data has been properly collected. So I think come 2000, I believe 2012, if I'm not mistaken, we took it upon ourselves, the industry, to say that, okay, hey, we have to do something about it because we want to be here 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, something that we can pass on to the next generation. So what we did is we practiced voluntary closed fishing at that time, meaning fishing companies chose to close down and stop fishing, and we used our simple data, which is, when do we catch fish with eggs in it. So we were doing it in December, and so we decided to stop fishing starting December, and then we kind of determined that we needed to give them 3 months to give them time to spawn, propagate, and etc. and grow. And so we ever since then we've stopped fishing from December to March. Next slide, please. And all this again with the purview of making sure that our fishing practices are going to be sustainable. So we produce about 2 million cans of sardines per day. And believe it or not, we're just one out of maybe 12 or 13 companies now that produce sardines. So the Filipinos really eat a lot of sardines, and it is healthy. So it's better than eating noodles. Next slide, please. We also have our own way of getting to carbon zero, net zero. Next slide, please. So we recently installed a 2 megawatt solar farm. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, next slide, next. Okay, one more. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide tells you about the 3-month fishing ban. And like I said, 3 months out of a year, we do close. We don't fish at all to give time for the fish to spawn, and then propagate. Next slide, please. And then here comes our project towards our net zero goal. So we put up a 2 megawatt power plant in all our rooftop space in Zamboanga. We're actually also mimicking the same project in our Bulacan plant, and also 2 other plants in NCR. So although it's still we're not yet net zero, we're well on our way to getting that done by 2030. Next slide, please. And one of the things that I'd like to tell everyone about, and I guess this is in part also thanks to Amor. When Amor and I went around, the Pitan, she showed me pictures of this 100-year-old tree, and she made me realize, why it's important to maintain our local flora and ensuring that our endemic species remain where they are. And this bamboo plantation project is a carbon sink plus livelihood program. What do I mean? And it started in Bukidnon. I heard a lot of Globe and Shell talking about Bukidnon and talking about bamboo. This is the giant bamboo species wherein we plan to plant 1,000 to 2,000 hectares of bamboo all around the Zamboanga Peninsula. And in turn, because of doing that, obviously they're going to capture carbon. They're going to be carbon sink. But one thing we do on top of that is we actually provide livelihood to the farmers who are growing these bamboos, because we buy them at a certain age, at a certain length, because we in turn convert them into re-engineered bamboo. We turn them into lumber. So that in that sense, it's really the sustainability portion of what we're trying to do from a carbon sink perspective. We also want to give livelihood opportunities to the farmers. Of course, there's the tourism potential, which is always there. But if we're able to provide them steady livelihood from selling of bamboo that they take care of, then we look at it as a more sustainable and maybe even replicable formula for other areas. So it started in Bukidnon. I think they currently have 1,500 hectares of bamboos there. And we also hope to replicate that here. So instead of just 1,000, 2,000, we're targeting 4,000. So one of the things that I kind of realized, and I'm glad that I was invited here, we were given a 5,000 hectare portion of highlands in what we call ecozone highlands here in Zamboanga. Initially, we actually were thinking of clearing the area so that we can plant a clear plantation for bamboo. But then we realized that we should not cut down any of the indigenous trees, the flora, indigenous flora, and maintain it. So maybe what I'd like Pnp Csi to do is, if we could work together, maybe identify certain portions of maybe a local endemic species that we should not touch or take care of, that we would not easily be able to identify, given that we're trying to plant 1,000 hectares. So we want to maintain the local ecosystem as much as possible. So I'm hoping to link up with, thank you, Dr. Sandra, with PNP CSI to see what we may have missed. No, I'm sure our perspective would not be the same as your perspective because I can't even name some of the plants that were mentioned kanina. But with this little project in mind, I hope we hope as Mega to be able to give an impact and show the other SMEs or other companies that there, it's not necessarily there's money to be made in sustainability, but you can be sustainable and still be profitable at the same time. Next slide, please. So we do this because it's really our vision and mission and part of our values to ensure that sustainability is a core value of our company. Like I said, we want everything that we do to be passed on to the generation to come, not only the next, but 5 generations, 10 generations later, we'll still be here doing what we do because sustainability was part of our process. Next slide, please. I think that was the end. Okay, next. So sorry, go back, please. So one of the things that most SMEs or even small or even medium-sized companies think of is sustainability usually is an added cost to their business. But in our case, we've noticed that the returns, although not direct, did come back twofold, threefold because our brand, it usually reflects on your brand image that you are recognized as somebody who takes care of the environment, who ensures that what they do is not destructive, and you see that in terms of brand loyalty. And with the millennials nowadays, they know they speak with their money. They buy products that they think are worth supporting, companies that are worth supporting, and we are happy to say that there's a reason why we're number one, not only because of our good food, good sardines, fresh sardines, but of course of the sustainability practices that we do throughout the company. Last slide, please. So sustainability is also our way of showing malasakit to the community, giving back to the community, because we all live in one nation, one globe, one earth, and we have to ensure that we maintain everything for the next generations. Thank you. Next slide. I think that's the end. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lim, for sharing with us some of the initiatives that your company is doing to help the environment. That was indeed another enlightening and discerning presentation that inspires us to move and help protect the environment. On this note, I would like to formally open this webinar's virtual question and answer, as well as the panel discussion. I'd like to call on back Ms. Crisanta from Globe Telecom, Ms. Trudeau from Filipina Shell Foundation, Mr. Lim from Mega Global Corporation, Dr. Yap, Mr. Pless, Mr. Arbias from Pnp Csi for the panel discussion. And of course, I'd like to call on back our moderator, Ms. McClang. Now, also, before we proceed, let us go to the photo op first. All right, is everybody ready? Tech, are we ready?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more, please. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Magandang gabi. I can't believe we have 470 plus on Zoom, and also at the same time, many, many others listening on our live stream. This really tells you that there is so much interest, especially amongst the young, spoken as a non-young person, in the environment. And we would like to thank everyone who's championing tonight. Now, I'm notorious for not following the script, so I'm going to ask a question that is off the cuff from all our speakers, both scientists and advocates alike. If you were going to choose a native plant or tree to represent you, what would it be and why? Who wants to start? Ma'am Yoli, yan. Narinig ko si Ma'am Yoli. Happy birthday, belated.
Thank you.
What would you be?
Parang kanina kasi it's mostly bamboo. Because bamboo, I'm kind of flexible. I like bamboo. Yeah, it's clean. It's easy to clean. Kasi OC ako sa paglilinis. And also because, matibay siya and it's very flexible as a plant. And tsaka marami siyang uses. Parang yung coconut tree natin, no? Maraming uses. Yan. So that's why I like it. Para siyang multifaceted for me.
Yan ang quote cards natin, guys, kung anong tree. Kasi I don't want to hear, these are sustainability experts, but I'm sure they've never been asked, what tree are they? So that's the quote card, Team Geyser, that I want to see. The Yoli Crisanto as a bamboo. Miss Marvie, how about you? Hindi pwede mag-repeat, Michael Tulim. Sorry, naunahan ka na ni Ma'am Yoli. Ma'am Marvie, how about you po?
I think I'd like to be first, because I'm so impressed and inspired na dapat indigenous. I cannot really think of an indigenous tree na fruit bearing.
Kahit native, okay lang.
Okay, so sa akin, gusto ko fruit bearing tree. Gusto ko sana mango, pero allergic ako sa mango. Pero yung symbolism ba, that it provides a lot of sweet fruits, and it encourages a lot of the biodiversity to come. You're able to feed a lot of animals, and then it provides you a really nice shade for everyone to be protected. So I think I'd like to see myself as a mango tree.
I love this. I'm sure this is the first time all of these sustainability rock stars have been asked this question.
Yes.
Sir Michael Lim, how about you, sir? Hindi ka pwedeng mag-ulit nasabi na bamboo ni Ma'am
Sana
Yoli.
you asked me first, but I could have said bamboo first. So I had to think about a second tree. But if I were to choose a tree, I would be a coconut tree, because a coconut tree has multiple uses. Actually, there's no waste in terms of coconut tree. From the fruit to the leaves to the trunk, everything can be used. And I happen to drink cocoa juice every day, so a healthy way of refreshing yourself. So a coconut tree.
Thank you. Hindi lang, kahit hindi tree kahit plant. Ako, I'm dying to know. How about you, Sir Dave?
Ako po?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna have to go with, well, I don't know if the plant represents me already, but maybe it's something I aspire to. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Clerodendron group of plants. That's your Bagawak Morado, your Kasupangil. So these are what you call glory bowers. It's the group that I'm studying and I'm working on. And of course, I have to promote now that we're on a webinar. So yung mga glory bowers or the Clerodendron, they're very adaptable, they're very opportunistic and changeable. And they're also very expressive. The flowers are big and beautiful. Some of them are called fireworks. So that's kind of what I aspire to be, adaptable, expressive.
I love this. Ma'am Sandra, Dr. Sandra, how about you, ma'am?
I am fine with being any one of the 50 plus species of dipterocarps that are native to the Philippines. They're big, they're tall, they live very long lives, and they are the foundations of our especially lowland dipterocarp forests, hence the name lowland dipterocarp forests. So any one of them. I study them, so I'm also particular. Just like David has his bias because he studies the Clerodendrons. So yeah, but yeah, so we have our own interest. So yeah, they're really, really big trees. You mentioned them earlier. The lawaans, those are the white lawaan, the red lawaan. Those are some of the few dipterocarp species that we have.
Now you see Ma'am Yoli, Ma'am Marvie, and Sir Michael. Why I love these people. Around them, I'm the most stupid person. Every Saturday morning, I love spending time with them. They're just awesome. And of course, my mentor in this industry, Kuya Anthony. Ano ka? Anong klase kang ano? Anong klase kang halaman or puno?
Or ano siguro for trees, I'm biased with figs. Figs are yung mga balete.
Nakakainis ka. I was supposed to say figs. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, why? Because they are keystone species. They are very important in every ecosystems because they provide a lot of food for many wildlife species. And they grow everywhere, but they are quite undervalued by people. Yun.
Yes, actually, Ma'am Yoli, I sent you a tree that's actually a ficus. That's a balete. And a lot of that, ayan, kitang-kita nyo. Si Anthony ang aking mentor dito. Kaya mahal na. Tsaka misunderstood, di ba? Everyone thinks that a balete, kinakatakutan, etc. But, you know, they actually shelter so many things, even spirits, I believe. Now, let's keep it very short.
Listen, dali, ikaw pa. What
Ma'am?
are you?
Ma'am, si ano kasi, si Sir Anthony Actually, I was gonna say balete, but ma'am, ako po pili nut. Okay? One of the areas of our advocacy is the Bicol region. Okay? Michael, you and I have never gone to Bicol. No, we have been to Bicol. Ano ka ba? Right? We have been, no, Mike? Where we had halo-halo. Pili represents all that's beautiful and unique about the Philippines. Lindol, bulkan, bagyo, lahat na po ay sinapi ng pili nut, pero kaya napakasarap ng pili nut is because of that, no? So even the pili coming from overseas, kasi ngayon sobra yung demand, chinek ko kay Kuya Anthony and he said it is endemic, Kuya Anthony, right? It's endemic. Tama siya, di ba? Endemic, sabi mo sa akin. Now, I would like to ask very quickly, a set of questions to my scientist advocates and my corporate advocates. What would you like to see more of the companies doing in relation to? I mean, tonight, I think it's the fact that they're already making the differentiation between native ba yan, endemic pa yan. I think, you know, napakagandang diskurso. But what I'd like to ask my three scientist advocates, what would you like to see more of the public, number one, and more importantly, the corporations who have the resources to actually reverse a lot of our problems? What would you like to see them do more? Doc Sandra, you want to start?
Oh no!
Kuya Anthony. Oh
Put me
yeah.
on the spot. But a lot of technical information is kind of at the moment still within just the scientific community. They're not heavily tapped by outside of the community. So in order to do, let's say, the carbon sink projects, you know, I understand that, and nothing against anybody trying to do carbon sinks that are right now focused on, let's say, bamboo plantations. I understand they have, you know, there's an advantage to it. It gives livelihood to the people, but you are focusing on one particular species, maybe, or one particular group of plants, which, as David just actually reminded me, I think we may have only one species of bamboo that's native to the Philippines. So the rest are
In
actually,
the genus Bambusa, but
right.
other
So
bamboos in other genera. Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, like there's sort of not a very good balance between sort of ensuring as well that there's biodiversity loss that isn't exacerbated by, you know, expanding these plantations for one single or, you know, just a few limited species. So I mean, we have different agendas, I understand, but it would be nice if we could find sort of like a nice medium where we could also incorporate some biodiversity. You know, like we clearly don't actually understand the full extent of the value of all the different species, but you know, having them all there before set up the forests that we made such use of, that you would think that with them, you know, with the reduction of all these different species, that there would be really drastic harmful effects perhaps. So what is that? Some principle of like what is it? Just to be conservative about it, if we could, make sure that we have all these species protected. We never know what use they might have in the future. They could be the cure to cancer, is what they always say. So yeah, I think we hope on our end that that's taken into account a lot more often than not. So I understand that there's also been already a progress in these planting these carbon sinks, where initially they would plant mahoganies and gemelinas, which are not native to the Philippines, and now it's always like we're all planting natives. But then if you plant, let's say, thousands and upon thousands of just a single species, like even if it's like a Nara, we don't have a natural Nara forest, right? We have Naras in forests, but they don't comprise the entire forest. So it's one thing to be just mindful of that in a natural forest, you don't just have the one species. There's a huge diversity, and not just of trees. It includes vines, grasses, even, and anything, everything, all different habits. So that's what I would naturally prefer, is a more diverse forest. Yeah.
And Dr. Sandra, that's why we're here. I think this is the beginning of a very good dialogue with the corporate sector, because as you can see, they're super open. They're super open. And we also want to be, as you said, science-led. I remember na nag-usap kami ni Dr. Sandra one time. She was so apologetic that she had to start with research. Sabi ko, ma'am, I would not expect anything less from you, because unless, as Miss Yoli said, unless it's science-led, we don't want to get involved, right? And scientists are the new sexy. Yan lang po ang masasabi ko. Yes, super. Thank you, ma'am. How about from our corporate advocate friends? What would you like to ask in turn from our scientists? Who'd like to speak? Ma'am Yoli, what would you like to ask in turn from them? Sir Mike. Sir Mike.
Baka maunahan ako sa question. No,
go, Sir Mike.
it's actually connected to
I'm super
what...
happy to say that you started looking into trees when we went to the Pitan. I'm so happy.
But it started with what Ma'am Sandra mentioned. For all we know, there probably are endemic plants that are medicinal that can cure, a sickness out there that we don't know of. But as a corporation, honestly, I don't know anything about plants. So I have to rely on scientists like Dr. Sandra to tell us like what's in my area, so that if we know what's in our area, then we can be consciously taking care of that species, that area, that ecosystem. Because without that data, without that knowledge, it's hard to imagine how to manage something unknown to us. So more of maybe, I guess, better collaboration. Like I said, I'm already reaching out to Pnp Csi to guide us, because I'm sure they're the experts in that field. So more collaboration and more education for people like me who are not too familiar with plants.
Mike, I have a lambing. You're the #1 sardine brand in the Philippines. Yung label mo, napaka-powerful. Baka you can devote a small piece of real estate in that to teach people about different types of native trees. Yun lang, maybe something you can talk to your family and to Marvin about. Because you are in every family, from the, I don't like to use the word poor, but across the entire socioeconomic strata, everyone loves Mega. So if that's something that you can look into.
Sige, I think that's something that Pnp Csi, once we sit down with them, something that we can talk about. That's interesting.
Yay! Maraming salamat, Michael. Thank you. Ma'am Yoli, anong request mo sa mga Ay, sir, sino yon? Sir David?
Sorry, David, it's me. Yeah.
Hi, sir.
May gusto lang akong i-request and idadagdag na I think it's great that we're getting this opportunity to talk to corporations about how we can help them and how we can help advise their projects, etc. But I guess from our end as conservationists, we want to ask corporations to be more proactive about reaching out to scientists, because we always get this parang, oh, I'd love to talk to you guys, pero like you guys have the resources, you have the contacts to reach out and find those scientists, find those experts. Now that they exist, they're in your universities, they're in your organizations. wag niyo na hintayin na kami pa yung lalapit sa inyo. Kayo na yung lumapit
They're the
sa amin because we're
shyest. I'm telling you,
always
they are the.
we they don't have to be shy. They're very big, powerful companies. They just need to go and
No,
find
you
us and then
guys, you
ask for our
guys,
help.
you guys.
Yeah, I mean, because we have, I know, as conservationists, there's a history of like having difficulty communicating the ideas and having difficulty being received na parang, oh, we're here to help, ganyan. Lagi kaming tinatag as people who are fighting against development when that's not true. And we're just looking for powerful allies, I guess, to help us bring across that message. So be proactive, mga corporations. Reach out to us. We're here lang.
Sir Anthony, let's organize. Let's please organize a tree walk when you're back. Let's please organize a tree walk when you're back. For our corporate partners. Bakit ba parang exorcist ako? Ayan, sige. So, let's organize a tree walk when we start our survey maybe of our native trail in Masungi, right? Or wherever Pnp Csi and in-city development. Let's invite Michael, Yoli, and also Miss Marvie. Kasi I think they need to. Ako talaga, what changed my life were really the tree walks. I'm telling you, the tree walks are. And now, whenever I go and hike, I look at things so much differently. Thank you. Thank you, Sir David. And this is gonna be the start of Ma'am Yoli and Ma'am
Siguro,
Marvie. What would you like the scientists?
Yeah, from our end, there is such a huge opportunity, especially now because number one, because of the pandemic, everybody went into plants. And like what Sir Mike said, diba? We need to understand and know what's around us. So if we can be more than just ornamental and there is some that's medicinal, by all means, we should know that, diba? And use the digital transformation or the digital world to start educating people about the endemic species and the science behind these things, right? Like in our case, we need it. Diba? We're doing it because we want to do net zero. So there is so much opportunity there to reach out to corporates and thank you for this, Amor, because kung hindi mo kami in-invite dito, hindi namin makikilala si Pnp Csi, right? And that these are the experts that we should be going into. So yon. So there has to be a lot of dialogue and networking and meeting together, collaboration. Use the digital space because it's already there. I mean, we can host you anytime, di ba? To reach out to as many people as possible. But I guess at the bottom line of it is, number one, you are the experts. So we have to make use of the expertise. Kailangan lumabas yung expertise na yan to as many people as possible. And number two, there is huge opportunity now for you guys to help us because everybody is into sustainability practice, especially yung publicly listed corporations. Because mandate na yan ng SEC. Everybody who is in publicly listed in the Philippines has to submit a sustainability report. All right. And part of that sustainability is E. E is environment. And environment is all about reduction of carbon emissions. So as much as you can help us with our nature-based solutions, please help us. So kami na po ang nagsasabi, tulungan niyo po kami.
Maraming salamat, Ma'am Yoli. Patulong naman sa innovation group ng Globe. Kailangan namin ng technology to identify the native plants. Seriously, marami po kaming kailangan. And most of it is actually on the tech side. If we can hack native trees, if we can do a hackathon, would be more than grateful. To tap the young.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Maraming salamat. Ma'am Marvie, kailan tayo pupuntang Palawan?
Anytime. And in fact, gusto ko nga kayong lahat pumunta ng Palawan because we're already doing all of this planting and all of that things. Pero ngayon lang ako nagising sa indigenous trees and indigenous plants. And thank you, Apor, for this. because I want to now steer my team into looking more into the indigenous trees and indigenous plants. But I can only ask the help of the PNPCI.
Mayroon tip, PNP na, CSI pa, di ba?
Ngayon, PNP CSI. Kasi kayo talaga yung makakapagsabi namin paano, alin, at anong itatanim namin next time. Ang Palawan has a lot of greening, a lot of environmental projects. Ang dami naming mga tree planting activities all throughout the year. Every munisipyo merong tree planting activity. What if we can now shift everybody to look into the indigenous trees? What if we can do, we all need to work together so that we can do this. But I have one that I put out in the kasi itong Tubataha, we have all of these islands na with the birds. Ang daming iguana at the bird shits that and it kills all of the plants. Tulungan nyo kami as to what can actually be planted in Tubataha so that we can actually respond to, losing all of the trees in an island. Can you imagine that? Because of the droppings of the birds. But you don't want to lose the birds because the birds are a very big factor in the biodiversity of Tubataha. So, as scientists, please let us, help us on this because it's something that we really need to respond to. And more, we will go diving into Tubataha because we will be planting. We will be planting with everybody who will help us. But I think these are things that we need help. We've been supporting Tubataha, but this is one of the things that we continue to, we plant and we lose 75% because really the trees aren't growing because of the many droppings of the birds. But as I said, we've been planting. We've been doing a lot of planting because we're in Palawan. So let's steer everybody so that they consider planting indigenous trees rather than, all of those big gimelinas that are not even our trees or ipil or whatever. But, tell us what to plant. Let's help the seedlings to be propagated, and let's continue to advocate for the planting of the indigenous trees in the Philippines. And as a promise, I am going to be putting this at the leadership team to say that we should now move into indigenous trees. So all our planting and every other thing that we do on planting and reforestation, I can assure you, I am an advocate now.
Maraming salamat, Ma'am Marvie. Superstar yan sa Shell ecosystem. Maraming salamat. See, Kuya Anthony Arbias, you would have never thought that more than 10 years ago, when you tolerated me just trailing you in all of these tree walks, a lot of what we do now was really, was really shaped by that. And when people were, when our scientist friends were asking me, why do we have to talk to corporations? A lot of it is because they have the biggest heart for the environment. And just like me, when I started, I did not know how to start. Now, this is obviously just the beginning of a very, very engaged dialogue, which we will take moving forward. But maybe in closing, before we sign our MOU, Geyser Maklang and Pnp Csi, I wish I could be a balete so I can take over all the Gemelina trees that were planted in Bohol. I am stealing that joke from Mr. Ronald Achacoso, one of the top artists in the Philippines. And together with Mr. Anthony Arbias actually led me to more than a decade. My God, no? 2011 pala yung una nating conference sa National Museum. And since then, we've really said we're going to devote a lot of our work to preserving not just the plants that protect us, but also at the same time, the communities that do that. Maraming salamat po to our friends. And if we could just ask you just a little bit more, no more than 5 minutes for our closing. Can I just turn it over to you, Joseph? Thank you.
Okay, I think, well, that was a very stimulating discussion about the environment and technology. These are exciting times indeed for the tech industry. And now we proceed to the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society, Kaiser McLang Marketing Communications Incorporated, and Digital Filipinas. To facilitate the ceremonial MOU signing, may we please request the members of Pnp Csi, Dr. Yap, Mr. Pless, and Mr. Arbias, as well as Digital Filipinas convener and GMCI co-founder Ms. McLang, to pose for a group photo.
May I actually ask Miss Yoli to join? She's the reason why Globe is an evergreen sponsor since last year and partner of Digital Filipinas, introduced GCash into the ecosystem. Michael Q. Lim for NICP. That's another life of Michael Lim. So may I just invite you guys, because if not for the support of you guys and also Filipina, if not for the support of you guys, we would not be able to do it in Digital Filipinas. Marami pong salamat. Can we just ask you guys to turn on? Kasi indirectly po, you guys made this support happen. Okay na, Joseph?
Okay. Tech, did we get the picture?
1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
And on that note, thank you. Maraming salamat. Magandang gabi po to the 400 who continued to listen on. Please join the Philippine Native Plant Conservation Society, either as a member, a supporter, or a follower. And let's all work together to take up the environment. Magandang gabi, mabuhay po ang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, to formally close our very insightful and inspiring webinar on the environment and technology, I would like to call back Dr. Yap for the closing remarks.
Right. Well, I'll make it really brief. Thank you, as Amor had already said. Thank you, first of all, to Amor, very passionate leader of this group, and to her team at GMCI, and to our invited speakers as well, Ms. Marvie, Sir Mike, and Ms. Yoli. It was overwhelming, all of the stuff that were discussed today, that were brought up today. But I did appreciate you sharing that, and I look forward to maybe further discussions with you, hopefully with Pnp Csi and your companies, and to everybody else who spent their time today to listen to all of us go over our allocated time. But I'm glad to hear that I'm glad to see that there's a broad and a huge audience for this topic, and lots of interest and passion for the same plant conservation agenda as we have. So again, thank you all very much. And everyone at home, if you have your own little garden, you can plant anything, doesn't have to be a tree, anything, and that will help. So we can all contribute, whether you're in the academe or as a corporation or as an organization. So let's all pitch in, as this is a global crisis, which will require a global response. So again, thank you all, and we hope to see you in future. Oh, I hope to see you all at our conference, at our symposium. You can look for the link to register. It's free for everyone. You can, I shared it a couple of times earlier, but you could also look it up on our Facebook page at Pnp Csi. So see you in the future. Bye.
Thank you for that very apt closing remarks, Dr. Yap. Despite the magnitude of the problem we're facing, we are optimistic about the assistance offered by today's emerging technology. As our country continues to be fertile ground for innovation, we're also confident about the prospects of developing novel tools and strategies to ensure the protection of these plants that, in turn, protect us. And that concludes our webinar for today. Please follow the Digital Filipinas Facebook page for updates. We wish you all a great evening. Thank you so much for coming.